bet if I asked you for 3 ways on how to improve your results, you could come up with some really great suggestions. Because ideas aren't the problem, it's the actions that get the results. Join me for this webinar where we unpack the knowing doing gap and how we can translate ideas and knowledge into action and results. Good morning, everyone. It's so great to see you. We are back for episode 2. Hi, Francis. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. We are back in shape. This is good.
Yeah, and so today we're talking about action. So we're in full action this morning, having a conversation about how to get results. And, the two of us work so frequently with CEOs and business owners, and so easily we get caught up in strategy and talking about things and making plans. But the way to get results is to put that into action. And I'm the first person who loves to learn more. I think curiosity is a good thing and having a mind that wants to grow and develop. But if you don't put into action everything you're learning, you don't get results. So today we're talking about challenging ourselves to put yourself out there, get uncomfortable, and take the action so that you can get to where you want to be.
I love that plan. I love that plan. So I'm sure for many of us, like we think about the New Year's resolution. We start the year like, I'm gonna do this, it's gonna work. I have this plan, I'm gonna go to the gym. You do it for 2 weeks, and I think the stats after a month is about 92% of the people gave up. So only 8 achieve what they're saying that they would do. So again, they know they should go, but they're not doing it. So what is the cause of that?
Exactly. And it all goes back to our minds, right? What we're thinking. And I think that's always what things come down to. Last week, we spoke about who do you need to be for you to create the results you want. But who you are often is a breakdown of your habits and your thinking. There's a quote that says, thoughts become things. You are a culmination of all your thoughts. So understanding exactly what your thinking is, what your habits are, and then eventually those collection of habits create paradigms in our belief systems. And that is actually the filter through which we see our lives. I've got this picture where you kind of see a big landscape and then there are kind of rose-tinted glasses. And I always think it's so fascinating because everyone you engage with actually has their own version of glasses on, right? We're seeing the same thing, but because of our beliefs and our perspectives, we're actually seeing it completely differently. And for me, that's always fascinating. You may see a hand like this, and I'm seeing the back of it, you're seeing the front. We're seeing the same thing, but the view is completely different. And it's so important to understand that we see things as we are through our own filter system. We don't really see it as what it objectively is. And it's so important to be aware of those things in our life.
Yeah, and when you look at how the paradigms are being formed, so for the people that maybe heard that for the first time, our definition of paradigm is a multitude of habits that creates your belief system. So it's a thought that you repeat and repeat and repeat, and then eventually it becomes a habit. It's familiar. So that's, like Elize said, it's who you are because you've repeated it so many times. It's coming from the place when you were young, the society, maybe even your ancestors. They've had some habits. I think they say there's an example of a mom that's doing a recipe and they're saying, where did you take that recipe? Well, your grandma was doing it, and where's grandma taking it? Like, it's just, they don't question it, and so it becomes a habit. That's how we're doing it. That's our paradigm. So now you can imagine for a trivial thing like food, or I mean, I'm a foodie, but let's say in that example, now how do we imagine the impact in terms of our leadership, in terms of who we are with our friends, in terms of how we deal with money, in terms of how we deal with time? How do we see it? Like you said, that lens, right? I'm also thinking about when I was a sales manager in the photocopier industry. There's some people that were really, really doing well, and some others were not. Some had the same type of territory, but for some reason, one was struggling and the other one was really succeeding. And I still even remember myself as a salesperson going into a company and hearing that again, for some reason, one would take a territory that was deemed by anyone that there's no business, there's nothing that's going to happen out of it. But then all of a sudden, this person, without even knowing it, thinks that it's absolutely possible, that there's so many possibilities, and then they rock it. They're actually the best salesperson in the team. So it's not about knowing. It's really about what you know or who you be at the subconscious level. Because I think that's another distinction to bring in. It's like we know things on a conscious level. And if we go back to the gym, we're like, yeah, okay, I'm going to go. I know I should go, but then why not doing it? The reason why we're not doing it is because of the paradigm that's in between. So if your filter is, I'm not fit for this anyway, I am not, that's where being, then all of a sudden it doesn't work.
And what's fascinating is that, you know, we so often place restrictions on ourselves without them actually being there, right? We're doing this all by ourselves. We think we can't do it. We believe that the territory doesn't have any business. You know, we've actually decided that we're not going to be successful before we've even started. And I sometimes think that that salesman who wasn't aware that there wasn't business in the area, or so it seemed, that is actually such a beautiful gift, right? I sometimes think we must become childlike again, because kids think they can take over the world and they can be the president and they can be an astronaut or create something amazing. And we can, right? And as kids, I think we dream big and we have all these aspirations. And then over the years, it's almost like kind of we're whittled down to, you know, restrictions and thinking it's not possible, and kind of what society tells us is normal. But it's like it's worth thinking big and dreaming big and going, maybe other people haven't made it work, but I know there's business here and I'm going to find it, right? And just believing that you can make it a success regardless of what other people tell you.
Absolutely. And now you made me think of this beautiful quote that I'm going to just show right now, because at the end of the day, let's see. Here you go. That quote is on. No, it's not. Hold on. This is the beauty of doing things with the
Life.
technology. Here you go. So the quote is, to be able to shape your future, you need to be willing and able to change your paradigm. So in what you just shared, I was thinking, we can find evidence about pretty much everything that people were able to achieve something extraordinary despite whatever current situation they're in, whatever the challenge they're in. So it's never really about the being able of doing things, but it's more about, that's why you have to be willing and able. If we know that we are able, because we could find evidence that it's working, that somebody was in the exact same situation. Let's pick a team. Oh, I'm running of 6 people out of 8. There's 25% of my budget that I can't achieve because I only have 6 people, whatever it is. Like, and it could be valid and it could also not be valid. Or my people are old, they're not good with technology, they're not going to be able to adapt. Whatever they have as a belief now really dictates how much of the results they're going to get. And so
Mm.
that's why this quote is so powerful, because you just have to ask yourself, am I willing to change my paradigm? Am I willing to change the way I'm thinking? Because if I'm
Mm.
not changing the way I'm thinking, nothing's going to change. So you got to change something in order to change your results.
I love that. And I mean, last week we spoke about kind of setting goals and dreaming big. And I think often it starts with a dream. It starts with this aspirational idea that seems so far away. And for you to be able to commit to making that a goal and something that you're going to go after, you need to commit to it, right? It's not just kind of like a pipe dream. It's, this is something I'm going to do. And those two questions that you just put up are so true, right? Am I willing to do what it takes? Am I willing to get uncomfortable, feel unsure sometimes, go and do something that's completely new and kind of out of my comfort zone? And am I willing to go there? Am I willing to be persistent? Because we all know it's not necessarily going to work the first time, right? Am I going to get up over and over again to make sure I reach that? And am I able? I mean, everything tells us that we all have infinite potential, right? We can all learn, we can all grow into what we need to be. So are you willing to do the work? And that's so important. And that's the same conversation with, are you willing to change your paradigms? As you said earlier, our paradigms were often set as children, many of them, right? It's the paradigm of, the culmination of your habits, the culmination of your beliefs. That often is set when you're really young. It's how you're brought up. It's, the values of your family or the traditions, but it's also things like, I mean, even something like what language you speak. That's because of the environment that you're in. But then also, thinking more about, did your parents say life is hard, or earning money is really difficult. Did they say things like that to you, or did they say to you, you can do anything you set your mind to? And those things so often shape us. And sure, some people were lucky to have those kind of big thinking beliefs, brought in and ingrained in them as children. But the beauty is, as adults, we can still change them. Sure, you need to be intentional about changing them, but you can change them if you are willing and able to do the work. If you are willing to, have these deep conversations with yourself and understand, what are my current beliefs? Are they serving me? Are they going to get me to where I need to be? And if not, I'm going to do the work to change them, because I know that's what I need to do to live the life that I want to live.
Absolutely. And, like now it makes me think of you just said it. How's my programming? Like, what do I think about that? Like, how do I behave about this thing? And the thing is, we have programming about everything. It's 95% of all of our behavior, 95%.
Crazy, isn't it?
That's like we're being on autopilot. That's why, we get triggers, and the triggers are not, or their reaction. They're not a response. So we just do something very quick because there's a system that's behind that says, I got this. I know exactly what to do. Here's the event. Here's how you're gonna react, and we're gonna do it very quick because I'm gonna save you some energy. And here's your reality. So unless we become aware and conscious, or also willing to change it, because the reality is we just need to look at our results and ask ourselves, is this what I want?
True.
And if that's not what we want, then we know that this is just because of one thing. It's because of our paradigm. And the paradigm is in the way of acting. So we know we should do it, but we're not doing it because of our paradigm. So we really have to ask ourselves, what's my programming around it? And so for leaders, and thank you, Elize. Like, I'm gonna actually, I don't know yet. I know you don't know what I'm gonna say, but here's a book that you asked me to read, or you said, "Oh, I
Hey,
love
thank
this
you.
book," and this is so good because we talk about self-image, and I'd love to see your point of view on that. But there's one thing that I read yesterday, which was so good. They say leadership is all about installing beliefs. I'm like, wow, that's so true. Influencing people, installing a belief. So going back to last week, do you have a vivid vision that's so good that the people are like, yeah, 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 I love that. Let's do it. And then if the leader infuses the belief that it's possible because they can see it in their mind, then all of a sudden you have something that's not only inspiring, but you're installing a belief in other people to make it and to do it. And the first person to install a belief in is ourself. And that's really about, what's my programming about X subject? Because there's a self-image that we have about pretty much everything. And again, it drives 95% of everything we do.
That's so true. And just your previous slide on the programming, I so often think about our paradigms and our habits and beliefs as like the operating system of a computer, right? It's like it's in the background, it's always running, but so it's not the pretty apps and the user interfaces that we use on a daily basis that you're aware of. It's running in the back all the time, and it's just there without us even knowing, which is actually, quite scary, but it's so important to be aware of it. And I think next time we'll talk a little bit about the stick person, kind of how the mind works. And your conscious mind is the analytical mind. It's where you're thinking. It's kind of where you're going, this makes sense or this doesn't. When you're learning, it's all in your conscious mind. Where your programming and your paradigm sits is in your subconscious mind. And that's so much deeper, right? That is this programming and the operating system basically of your life. And the important thing to know is that the subconscious mind doesn't know whether things are real or not. It just accepts, right? So it's so important for us to think critically in our conscious mind about, I'm getting all these inputs all around me from all my senses, from everything I'm seeing and hearing and tasting and smelling. But is that something that I want to get emotionally involved with? Is that something that I want to internalize into my subconscious? Because that subconscious is that filter, right? So I almost see it that I must use my conscious mind so well to make sure I only let the things that I want through to my subconscious mind, because that is that belief system. And it's basically your subconscious mind that then results in the actions, right? It's when you believe you can do it that you take the actions. It's when you kind of so fully commit to it that you're willing to do what it takes to get there. So I almost see the subconscious mind as a sacred place that I need to protect and to make sure that only the good things that I want that are going to serve me to get where I want to be, only those things are allowed in the subconscious mind. Because if the wrong beliefs get in, everything is affected. As you said, your results tell the answer. If you want to know whether you have the right programming and the right paradigms, look at your results and that'll tell you.
Yeah, and I love that you talked about operating system. That's why I showed the slide again. I don't know if you noticed, but it's almost like the Matrix. It's zeros and
Yeah,
one. So that's
absolutely.
exactly what it is. And in my program with my clients, I call it unlocking your source code because it
Mhm.
is a source code. It's at the root of everything. Your paradigms are at the roots of everything, your behavior. So if you want to have a permanent change, you need to go at the root, not just on the surface. It's almost like, I say to my clients, there's a depending on what your I am statements are, which is the source code. Like we say, we spit something, it's I am. Let's say I say, I am confident all the time. So if
Mm.
I'm confident all the time, and that's the source code of, or my operating system, the root cause of everything, then my actions will be very different. We can just even imagine making a phone call to top CEOs or creating some partnerships that deems to be impossible. Imagine it if in my mind, I am so valuable. I am confident. I am worth it. Imagine the type of behaviors you're going to do, the actions, and then what results you're going to get. So at that source, that's where we need to change everything. And the thing that I say to my client is if you have an I am statement, which is, let's say, disempowering,
Mm.
but consciously only on the surface, you're saying I am good, but deep down, you're not. It's almost like putting a little frost on poop. Like it's not going to change anything. Underneath, there's still some poop. So you need to remove that in order to really create a permanent change. And that's so important to really be able to identify what the source of everything. And like we said, take a look at your results. Like it's gonna tell you something. And you also mentioned something that I love, it's the language. So here's something that I also say to my clients is if you ever hear yourself or hear other people say always, it's always like that. Well, that's a beautiful area to take a look at what your beliefs are,
Mm.
what your judgments are. Like take a look at how do you see the world? How do you see your friends? How do you see your colleague? How do you see your company? How do you see the company values? Do you really believe in it? And if you say always, 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 then that's right there. You have your belief system.
That's a really good point. And I think it's just, giving people these kind of nuggets of that awareness. When you hear yourself saying always, what am I thinking? What is that underlying belief? And I know we've got some questions coming up a little bit later because I think it's when you surface these that you have the awareness that you are then empowered to make that change, right? It's only if you uncover it. And I think so often we're so busy planning and doing and in our business and in our life that we just, as you said, on autopilot. I mean, that statement for me is always so scary, that 95% of your life is controlled by your subconscious mind. Just think about like your routines in the morning. You wake up, many people wake up, look at their phone, go and take a shower, have a cup of coffee. It's almost like you don't even think about it. It just happens. And it's we need to kind of take stock and just have that moment of going, what do I want to be? Who do I want to be? And what is the right way of setting myself up? Do I just want to be on autopilot, or do I want to be intentional about how I start my morning? What is my frame of mind? Am I aware of my language? And so often, people talk about the still small voice, like what are you saying to yourself? Because I think a lot of us are, you must say kind things to people and you're kind of aware of what you're saying. But wow, like that, the internal conversation is powerful, right? And that is surfacing your belief system. And what are you saying to yourself? Are you saying, I always make mistakes and I never get the results I want? Or are you saying I'm capable and I'm empowered and I'm confident and I am willing to do what it takes? What is that conversation? And I think we often neglect that because we're so busy kind of in the outside world that we don't actually realize what's going on internally. I mean, the person we're speaking to most in life is ourselves.
Absolutely. And when you were sharing, there's so many good nuggets. It's like we know I can recognize all the nuggets you're talking about. I'm like, oh, this is so good. This is so good. We can slow down on a lot of things because, first of all, one thing that you mentioned was being emotionally involved. And so, and with everything you mentioned as well, if imagine you're emotionally involved negatively with some concept, but on the surface, only consciously, you're saying it's possible. But even like in my demeanor, like it doesn't look like it is because my body doesn't lie. Actually, the body is a direct reflection of your subconscious. So that's what's being created. So when we see a cue of someone's like, you don't look like very excited, it's because their subconscious is saying, yeah, it's not gonna work. So it doesn't matter what we say on the surface, at the conscious level, we need to impress with an emotion, and then a beautiful emotion in the subconscious that it's working. So I was thinking about how do we program, and one area that I think is very important is to slow down and find time during the day to relax. Because when you look at the TV programming, how are we when we're watching TV? How's the programming being done at the moment? We watch it in the morning while we're just barely waking up in that routine that you talked about. And then we have this information that's being fed while we're almost sleepy. And in that state of, like, if we want to be technical, alpha state, and we're being programmed. We're just being programmed. We receive that information. What's the other time during the day that we watch TV normally?
Night.
Just before bed. So again, we're dozing, watching TV, receiving all of that information, and it goes right through into the subconscious mind that becomes a reality. And the thing is, we watch it every day. So that's the programming. So how do we change that? One key area is to program ourselves positively by being relaxed and having a beautiful vision, and also imagining what type of emotion we would have once the goal is achieved, and repeat and repeat and repeat. And I know that some people don't like to do that, but the reality is you're doing that already. You're repeating the same thoughts on and on and on and on. And when you shared, I was also thinking about a dog. Like, what dog do you feed? Like, what type of things of food do you give to your dog? Is that I am good once in the day or 3 times, and the rest of the time, out of 100, 97 times, you're telling yourself, I'm not good enough, or I'm not knowledgeable enough, I don't know enough, I need to find more information. Well, guess what? That dog is the one that you're feeding, and that's exactly the results you're going to create. So repetition is so important. Like, there's two ways to change the paradigm. It's either a shock that's so negative that it wakes you up, and for some people that could be cancer or whatever it is, something physical, a loss of a family member. They're like, I gotta do something now. Like, I'm this is a decision. And usually it's pretty quick. It's usually negative. But and the other
Mm.
way is to have constant space repetition. Really going to the gym, and we repeat and tell ourselves, maybe while there's a concept. Actually, I'm going to introduce a pre-game before you see the challenge coming up, because if, let's say, you're going to the gym and you're like, oh, I really don't feel like it. Well, you knew that you would tell yourself that. So once you hear yourself saying that, you can just say, no, I'm going for it. I'm a beast, or I'm a
Yeah.
whatever you want to say that's going to motivate you. You're doing it, and you repeat it and you repeat it. And lastly, I know I'm telling a lot of things here because I'm curious about what you're going to say. The other part is also the environment that we're in. So who are we with? And do we have an accountability partner? Do we have a coach? Because that helps so much. There's a quote, I think, that Bob Proctor was saying, that he was talking about a man that said it's environment is more important than heredity. Environment is so important. So who do we surround ourselves with is going to have a big difference, a big change in your results.
Your environment is that repetition, it's part of the repetition, right? Are you surrounding yourself with big thinkers, positive people, people that build you up, or just people that are looking for negative, getting upset about politics and the environment and whatever? Like, that is what is coming through to you every single day. And I think what was interesting is when you spoke about watching TV, like when you're kind of more relaxed, your brain waves do become like, it adapts. And as you were talking about alpha and theta and all the rest. And And that's when you're more susceptible to accepting ideas, right? So if you're watching something negative with negative ideas in the evening, as you said, it goes into your subconscious because your conscious mind isn't almost like, policing it. But I think the concept of repetition, it can't be emphasized enough. So our paradigms were created through repetition, through your environment, through learning. I mean, we all know, like at school, I don't know, a multiplication table. You repeat it over and over and over again. I'm going through that with my daughter at the moment. And often it's like fun while I'm cooking. I'll be like, hey, what's 2 times 3 or whatever, right? Because you want to do it so many times that you're not thinking about it anymore, right? It just is like, this is the answer. And that's where you want to get to. So when you're younger, that is almost like in the way that when we teach a child, say hello or say thank you, that is through repetition as well. And we almost need to go back to that kind of mindset of, I'm in learning mode, I'm recreating, I'm adjusting myself. I mean, I feel like we're always evolving, right? If you're not, you're falling behind. So how are you evolving as a person? And are you doing it by default, just by whatever's around you? Or are you being intentional about that? And even if we're thinking about businesses, are you setting, I mean, we can talk strategy or we can even talk culture. And a lot of my clients are talking about, how do I create the right culture in my organization for excellence, for going and doing new things, for innovation? And then very much, how am I creating trust with my people? Are we failing fast and willing to bring up things that we're concerned about? I think back in the day, it was, the people on the ground often knew there was a problem, but the boss makes the decisions and you just leave them at that. And culture is something that you firstly must kind of live as the leader. It's something that you need to talk about. It's something that everyone needs to buy into, because effectively that is the paradigm or programming of your business, right? And what is that? Is that just whomever and whoever has the skills, or is it people that are constructive, are additive to your environment? And again, that's repetition. Like I was talking to one of my clients yesterday and he said, but Elize, I've told people this like 5 times. Like, seriously, how many times? And I was like, you're going to have to say it 50 more times, right? Like, you almost need to say it so much that if you wake someone up at 3 a.m., they go, this is the values of the company. This is the organization. This is what we're expecting of each other. So it needs to be repeated so many times that it becomes part of who you are. And I think that's why it's important to have the right people from a recruitment perspective, but also laying that kind of foundation when people join your organization of, this is what we stand for, this is who we are, and this is who we are as individuals and as an organization, and we need to be aligned.
You just said it right. This is who we are. Who we are is our way of being. And when you shared your story, it made me think of when I joined Xerox. There was such a culture there. I felt that it was going to the army of sales. People would get in, and if you're not fit, like you're out
Mm.
after 3, 4 months. But because the culture was so powerful, and one of the things that it was ingrained is that we never sold on price. We were always the most expensive out there. And it was, as you shared, I realized, yeah, that for us, the culture is we're the best. We're the best. And it's 25% above everyone. And I'll tell you why. Because of
Mm.
this, because of that. That was the culture. And it was probably repeated so much. And you're so right about how you hire, because it was repeated at a certain point, I guess, so much that it became a no-brainer. It became automatic, like a
Mhm.
automatic pilot or automatic pilot, right? We just knew, oh yeah, we're the most expensive. Of course, we're the best. And so if this culture is so well established and in a very powerful way, then all of a sudden people will follow, people will do it, and again, the results will be very different. And I love that what you said, this is what we stand for, this is who we are. So I think we're getting closer to wrap up all these things. So, to summarize a little bit, people know how to do things, but they're not doing it. The beauty of this presentation is to understand that it's not your fault. You're being run by a system, an operating system that controls 95% of everything that you do, and you've been programmed with your knowing or without your knowing, usually without
Mm.
your knowing, and you can change that. And the paradigm is in the way. The paradigm is in the way for you to do the things that you're supposed to do. And It's who you are. It's the reflection of what you think you are, your self-image, and your operating system. And there's one question you need to ask yourself: am I willing to change my paradigm? If I don't like my results, I know I'm being run by a paradigm. Now I can ask myself, do I want to change it? And what do I need to repeat on and on and on and on, emotionally involve in my idea, something that's very positive, doing it at a time, maybe in the morning and then at night just before bed, because this is a place where you're the most suggestible. And then we're going to talk about some habits and some key actions after that. So did I miss anything? I know
I
you're
think it's
also.
fantastic. Absolutely love that. Be intentional, repeat it, and focus on what you want and doing what it takes.
Yeah, and so the takeaways, and I think that an exercise that you guys can do is basically ask yourself, since we know paradigms is a multitude of habits that we do constantly, we're not even being aware of. So now take a look at your results and ask yourself, what are my non-productive actions that hinders my results? I think we have to be very honest with ourselves. Am I really doing the things that I should do? And if I'm not making my sales call, for example, maybe I'm
Mhm.
afraid of looking bad, whatever it is, but that's your self image and that's the paradigm. The beauty is that once you change that, you unlock and you shift your paradigms, your results will be exponential because you're now looking at the root cause instead of on the surface. You can work on the surface all day long, have some trainings, the key tactics and everything, but if at the root cause you know it's not going to work, well, guess what? It's not going to work. So it will have temporary results, but it's not going to be permanent. So ask yourself, what type of non-productive actions am I doing? And then the second part is, and I'll leave you at least with the third one because I know it's one of your favorite. The second question is, what's your productive action? What do you need to do? What do
Mm.
you need to do that will change the needle, that move the needle of your results? And again, the beauty is that we don't need to focus on too many of them. One or two will be enough. If you know the Pareto law, 20% of everything that we do creates 80% of our results. That's amazing. That's an exponential lever right there. We just need to concentrate and focus on one or two habits at a time. What
Mm.
are the productive activity that I can change that will create a fantastic transformation in my organization or in my life?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love these questions because just understanding, what am I doing right now? What is not serving me? Am I procrastinating? Am I avoiding a difficult conversation? Am I avoiding, what is not helping me get to my results and my goals? And then what does it need to be? So you're almost like looking at the opposite, right? Am I procrastinating? Okay, I need to be full of action. Why don't I do the most difficult task first thing in the morning? I'm going to give myself a great I am statement. I can do this. I'm amazing. I can get the results, right? And then just get it done. And you almost want to kind of look at what is not serving me and what is the exact opposite that will get me to where I want to be. And you were talking about training, and it's so true, right? Especially with what we're talking about today. So many companies spend so much time on training, and you're learning more about different things. And fundamentally, many times things don't change. You teach people about sales, but they don't do it. You teach them new skills and tactics. It's not like they double their sales. They could, but they don't necessarily. And what's so fundamental about what we're talking about is that programming changing. You can change everything. You were talking about the poop, like lipstick on a pig, right? You can change anything at the top, surface level, but fundamentally, am I changing? You can tell me a whole bunch of things. If I don't commit to it, if I don't change my belief system, will I take that action? And I think that's the core message for today. What do I need to change from a programming, from a deep subconscious level? What do I need to change in that belief system so that I can act the way that I actually already know how to be able to get the results? Fundamentally, we all know, I bet most of us know exactly what we need to do to be able to get results we want. You want to double your sales, you want to change this. Like, if you think about your goal, I bet that you know fundamentally what you need to get done. Something is holding you back, and that is that belief system. And that goes to that third question you mentioned: who do I need to be? Who is the person that is reaching that goal? What do I need to do to get there? How would they act? How would they behave? How would they show up when they are in that state. When I've reached my goal, what would it look like? And that goes back to what we spoke about last week. You need to have that vivid vision that you can see it, you can taste it, you can actually like just imagine being there right now when you close your eyes. Who is that person and what are they doing? Because that got them the results they want. And that's where we need to get to. You need to embody that person so that you take the right actions and you get to where you want to be.
Mic drop. Mic drop. Boom. And so, yeah, thank you so much. And I hope you guys see the value that we have in these conversations. But there's a lot to it. Like we can slow down on concepts for a while. And that's why we are sharing with you in the Google Docs. You can take a look at the question, do the exercise yourself. You can reach out also. We're more than happy to help you, your organization, yourself change that programming. And it takes people that have experience, and we do. So thank you for joining us on this Thought Leaders Thursday. More to come. Thank you for your beautiful insights, Elize. And yeah,
Thank you.
we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much.